Following a recent military confrontation with India, Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif declared that Pakistan is flying high after what he described as a major military and diplomatic triumph. Speaking at Quetta Command and Staff College, the Premier lauded the Pakistani forces for countering Indian airstrikes with the downing of 5 jets and emphasized that Pakistan had established a new norm in deterrence. He accused India of concocting a patently false explanation for its losses, referencing Operation Bunyana Marsoos. He cautioned that future threats to Pakistan now include cyber attacks, disinformation, and economic coercion.
The recent Indian aggression against Pakistan, violating our territorial integrity and targeting our innocent civilians, was not merely countered successfully, but instead we succeeded in turning the tables on those who are dreaming of establishing a new norm. On the diplomatic front, our offer of a neutral, independent, and credible investigation into the so-called Pahalgam terrorist incident was brushed aside by India, that knew full and fully well that such an investigation would only uncover the ugly truth.
Simultaneously, the Premier acknowledged significant domestic economic challenges. Shehbaz detailed reforms since 2024 that helped stabilize the economy, slashing inflation from 38% to 0.3%, having interest rates, and improving forex reserves. He framed these as fruits of sacrifice, blood, and sweat made by the Pakistani public during an austerity phase to secure an IMF agreement.
Today, alhamdulillah, we are witnessing the fruits of those sacrifices made by the common man of Pakistan. Inflation has plummeted from 38% to 0.3%. Our rupee stands stable. Official foreign exchange reserves have crossed $11 billion, and galloping interest rate, which was 22.5% in 2022, have come down to 11%. Simply put, a reduction of 50%.
On the diplomatic front, Pakistan's foreign ministry accused India of violating international human rights obligations by inciting hatred against Muslims during a tense period. Islamabad expressed alarm over a surge in Islamophobic incidents, including hate crimes and state inaction, citing 184 cases documented by APCR between April 27 and May 8. Tensions over water are rising, quite literally. In just 2 days, Chenab River inflows dropped by 91,000 cusecs, according to WAPDA. The sudden cut from over 98,000 to just 7,200 cusecs follows India's suspension of the Indus Waters Treaty (IWT) after blaming Pakistan for the Kashmir attack, a claim Islamabad denies. Pakistan's PM Shehbaz Sharif condemned the move, warning against the weaponization of water. "This is a red line," he said, "and we will not allow Delhi to cross it." India, meanwhile, has fast-tracked dam and hydropower construction on rivers allocated to Pakistan. A Punjab irrigation official claims the water is being diverted to fill Indian dams in the Chenab Basin. With no discharge from Marala headworks, Pakistan's agriculture stands at risk and diplomacy dries up. Meanwhile, trade tensions flared as U.S. President Donald Trump revealed that Pakistani officials are headed to Washington to discuss reciprocal tariffs amid threats of a 29% duty on Pakistani exports. Trump tied trade cooperation to peace, stating, "I wouldn't have any interest in making a deal with either Pakistan or India if they were going to be at war.
And I wouldn't have any interest in making a deal with either if they were going to be at war with each other. I would not, and I let them know."
In a moment of national pride, Olympic javelin star Arshad Nadeem clinched gold at the Asian Athletics Championship in South Korea with an 86.40 m throw, Pakistan's first athletics gold in 50 years. PM Shehbaz praised his dedication and success, while the president, top athletes, and cricket stars joined in congratulating the javelin hero. India's top general has admitted it suffered initial air losses in this month's clash with Pakistan, but claims a swift tactical shift turned the tide, according to Reuters.
What I can say is, on 7th and the initial stages, There were losses, but the numbers, and that's not important. What was important is why did these losses occur and what did we do after that. So we rectified tactics.
In another interview to Reuters, India's Chief of Defence Staff General Anil Chauhan in a Bloomberg interview confirmed initial air asset losses during Operation Sindoor, attributing them to tactical errors. While this was the first official Indian acknowledgement of setbacks, Chauhan insisted the situation was stabilized quickly.
General, there's still one unanswered question since the incident between Pakistan and India, and that is whether or not Pakistan downed an Indian jet, or in fact more than that. Can you confirm?
I think what is important is that not the jet being down, but why they were being down.
But a jet, at least one jet was downed?
Yeah, why they were. So the good part is that we are able to understand the tactical mistake which we made, remedy it, rectify it, and then implement it again after 2 days, and flew all our jets, again targeting at long range, which I said.
Pakistan claims 6 Indian jets were downed. Is it correct in that estimate?
Absolutely incorrect, and that is not information which I said is important. What is important is why they were down. That is more important for us. And what did we do after that? That's more important.
Amid ongoing uncertainty around Ukraine-Russia negotiations, diplomatic maneuvering has intensified. While the Kremlin has proposed a second round of face-to-face peace talks in Istanbul, Ukraine has withheld confirmation of its attendance, citing the absence of a formal Russian memorandum outlining concrete proposals. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky emphasized that any meaningful dialogue must be anchored in clear terms and advance preparations, stating that the killing of people must stop for talks to hold value. Despite prior engagement on May 16, that initial Istanbul session produced little beyond a prisoner exchange agreement. Meanwhile, Turkey, positioned as a mediator, has been advocating for a broader summit involving the leaders of Ukraine, Russia, the United States, and Turkey, signaling Ankara's intent to facilitate a breakthrough. Parallel to these diplomatic developments, political pressure from Washington is gaining momentum. U.S. Senator Lindsey Graham, speaking during a visit to Kyiv, announced that the Senate would push forward next week with a bipartisan bill to enforce sweeping new sanctions on Russia. With 82 co-sponsors, the proposed legislation targets not just Russian exports, but also countries that continue to import Russian oil, gas, and uranium, introducing tariffs as steep as 500%. Graham sharply criticized the Kremlin for prolonging the war and accused President Vladimir Putin of staging a Russian charade by using peace talks as a delay tactic. He emphasized that these sanctions are designed to provide President Trump with leverage at the negotiating table, suggesting that punitive economic measures could prompt more serious engagement from Moscow. Meanwhile, broader geopolitical issues loom over the negotiations, particularly the future of NATO expansion. In a noteworthy statement, Trump's envoy to Ukraine and Russia, 𝐶𝐭𝐲𝐬𝐷, described Russia's opposition to NATO's eastward enlargement as a fair concern. He clarified that Ukraine's accession to the military alliance is not currently on the table, a sentiment reportedly shared by multiple NATO members. 𝐶𝐭𝐲𝐬𝐷 added that upcoming talks in Istanbul aim to reconcile the competing memorandums drafted by Kyiv and Moscow into a unified proposal. Despite diplomatic frustrations, he reiterated Trump's commitment to facilitating dialogue and cautioned against further military escalation, citing a staggering 1.2 million combined casualties as evidence of the war's devastating scale. In a rapidly escalating crisis, the situation in Gaza has grown increasingly dire as Israel's military offensive continues. According to the Gaza Health Ministry, over 54,000 Palestinians have been killed and more than 124,000 wounded. The government media office further estimates the death toll may exceed 61,700, with many still buried under rubble. Meanwhile, the United Nations has declared Gaza the hungriest place on earth, warning that all 2.3 million residents are experiencing catastrophic hunger. Amid these conditions, Hamas has formally submitted its response to a United States ceasefire proposal, which aims to exchange 10 Israeli captives and 18 bodies for the release of an undisclosed number of Palestinian prisoners. Significantly, Hamas's response centers on three non-negotiable demands: a permanent ceasefire, full Israeli military withdrawal from the Gaza Strip, and unrestricted access for humanitarian aid. These points echo previous unmet terms from a January ceasefire deal, during which Israel reportedly failed to permit essential aid deliveries and did not retreat from occupied territories, including key areas such as Rafah and northern Gaza. The new proposal, mediated by U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, aims to end hostilities and initiate long-term recovery, but no immediate response has come from either Israel or the United States. The international community is watching closely, as these conditions may serve as the foundation for any future agreement. Further complicating diplomatic efforts, Israel has blocked a high-level Arab delegation comprising ministers from Egypt, Jordan, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE from entering the occupied West Bank. This move has drawn sharp criticism from Palestinian leadership, with Vice President Hussein al-Sheikh condemning it as a dangerous escalation and an example of arrogant, provocative, and unprecedented behavior. Rights groups, including Amnesty International, have also spoken out. Secretary General Agnes Callamard called for tangible actions from Western nations to restore global credibility, such as halting arms sales to Israel and enforcing international criminal court warrants. As the humanitarian catastrophe deepens, the world now awaits decisive responses that could shift the trajectory of the conflict.